some of the most meaningful experiences to go through. It also can be one tiny small shift. There is a desire to live a more vital life in some capacity.
It's something that people are trained for, right? And something you and I understand.
My non-negotiables, which are my own health and my fitness and my mental solitude space.
Welcome back to I Can Fit That In, the podcast where ambition meets alignment. Today, I am joined by Mar Soraparu, a visionary leader and executive coach working at the intersection of wellness and leadership. She is the co-founder and chief wellness officer of Beyond, a groundbreaking 35,000 square foot ecosystem that brings together luxury, medicine, longevity, and personal development in just one integrated experience. Mara is known for her ability to turn big vision into thoughtful execution, shaping both the member journey and the internal systems that support sustainable growth. Featured in global media, she also coaches leaders and change makers to redefine what it means to live and lead well. This is a topic so near and dear to my heart. Mar, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Erin. We have so much in common, and I know I said that when we first met. So this is truly a pleasure.
I feel the same way. I mean, it's just incredible the amount of synergy that we have, both in our stories, but also in clearly the work that we do and the passion behind it. Mm-hmm. So I thought we would start there. Let's start with how you developed this passion, because as we both know, we're not always born into it. It's not always modeled for us. For me in particular, I mean, I grew up on food stamps and food pantries, and the occasional White Castle was a real treat. So the journey of holistic health and wellness that I ended up stepping into is very different than what I was raised in. So just tell us a little bit about your story.
Sure. You know, I think a lot of stories, unfortunately, but fortunately, start out of something that's pretty painful. I also see that, and I'm sure you do too, in the coaching world, is often that also becomes a turning point for people. Mine was I like to talk about it in a way where it was a slow, steady series of whispers. There was not one moment. There was not one idea or revelation. It was more of a compounding effect over the course of my life. But what brought me here today is a true confluence of everything that I have experienced and done in my entire life, starting from being young and in athletics and dance, and then theater, and what that brought to me to have a work ethic, and how that moved me from finance and into entrepreneurship, and now in my current business with Beyond. So it's really, each step really mattered, and it's nice to see all of that come together.
Right. And you know, what I think is so interesting about the work that you do currently with Beyond and how, you know, your story behind setting that up. One of the things that really comes to mind is community and the importance of community. And so can you tell us about, first of all, how you started Beyond? Because I think it's just a very intriguing story. But secondly, how does community really play into everything that you all offer, but also, you know, what you're continuing to evolve into and to create?
Sure. I'll start with the community question and that point. You know, there's the community element of the staff family at Beyond, and then there's the community element of what Beyond provides people and its members, and how that actually radiates out into the broader community circles. But from when I was working originally in after finance, started teaching yoga, started working privately with clients, working in corporations, started to work through the coaching process. All of those things were very siloed. And what I felt very quickly in that one-on-one work particularly was this craving for community and this craving for, where do I go with these questions? And as a sole practitioner, which I became very familiar with in the wellness space, a lot of those practitioners felt the same. What one person was as a personal trainer actually ended up doubling as, you know, a therapist and a physical therapist and a matchmaking coach and mental health support for somebody. But the question became, when we were looking at Beyond, was, is that the best way to be serving somebody? Where is the integrity in that? Even though there is a deep care and want to support, how do we build on that to actually serve people in the most meaningful way? And so that was one of the big parts of Beyond, and I'll go into that. But the community element of the team has been exponential. We have doctors on site who have never been able to collaborate with other doctors and providers in the wellness spaces and medical fields, and to see them working side by side as full-time employees, not consultants that share an office once a week or once a month, but actually collaborating on care plans for individuals has been and continues to this day to be one of the most rewarding components of what Beyond and how it was set up for, but what it does each and every day for people. But then obviously the community element, we opened November 20th of 2020. It
Yeah. Divine
second
timing.
shutdown, divine timing. And that people were obviously, and we all felt this in our own ways, needing to have that connection again. And I think people were also faced with maybe understanding how much they weren't embracing all of the opportunities for community and connection before COVID hit. So it held a really big mirror up for a lot of people. And then those who really embrace community, all of a sudden having that change shape. You know, when we opened, that was number one. The community around, it's not like-minded individuals because Beyond attracts so many different types of people, but there is one similarity, and that really is wanting to live a more vital life, or wanting to feel a little bit better, or wanting to change their life. And that's the similarity that all of the Beyond members feel, and that's what people are gravitated towards us for. And bringing people together in really different ways, and the ways that we all know, cocktail parties, social events. But now they're actually having these really deep shared experiences each and every day or week, or every week or day, depending on how you operate in the space of Beyond. But what we offer are those opportunities to go much deeper, to do it together, and to really find a different way to spend your time and to connect with people that's way beyond the surface. So we have a lot of fun. But the way Beyond came together was I was what I like to say I was the wellness puzzle piece. So after I got out of finance, started my own yoga business, coaching business, started consulting in the space with corporations from a wellness perspective. How do you bring the tried and true things that what I think a lot of people for a long time felt were woo-woo? How do you bring that into the more mainstream space without losing integrity? And without trying to force people to not be where they actually are in their evolution of self-awareness or mindfulness or wherever they are in their life. So I really served that purpose on an individual level. And then Kevin Bain was a client of mine. He's one of the co-founders of Boca Restaurant Group, and he was an active participant in his own health journeys in multiple ways. And then we were in a session one day, and he said, "Hey, I'm thinking about private clubs. Where can we bring wellness into the mix? And I'm really thinking about doing this." And I said, "Well, absolutely, but it'd have to be a lot of space. And here's what we can do." And he goes, "100% we can do that." He goes, "Go meet with my friend Joe Fisher. He's a recovering lawyer, and he is dabbling in more of the Eastern medicine space. And we want to come together and do something." So I met with Joe. It should have been a 30-minute hour meeting. We ended up meeting for over 2.5 to 3 hours. And that was the start of what now is Beyond. And it is that bringing together of those puzzle pieces of hospitality, high touch service, deep integrity in the medicine side of both Western and Eastern, things that make you feel good, like massages and facials and all of the things that contribute to living a better, more healthier, happier, whatever type of life is that you crave. And bringing that all together in 35,000 square feet has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my entire life. And seeing how these things come together for the people who work with us and for us, and what that does for the broader community. When each of these individuals play their part in a more vital way, and when that impacts someone on the outside, that's when the ripple effect is seen and felt and actually makes a dent. And that is what we get to see every day. And that is where we make our impact on the world to make it a better place. And it starts with just one person.
Right. It always has to start with one person, because without that one person who wants to create some sort of positive change in their own life, whether that's going inward or that's physically or that's both, usually it's both. But when they do that, it does impact everybody that they interact with, right? Because their energy is different. They lead themselves different. They are more whole. They're a more grounded person. And so they're not as reactive, and, they don't care as much about urgency everywhere and, all of the chaos that's coming at them. Instead, they can approach their own life in a different way, which then allows those around them to absorb them in a different way. So I believe so much in that. And I'm curious from your perspective, what have you seen? So I think Beyond is just gorgeous. It's such a beautiful place. Anyone who lives in the Chicago area that hasn't checked it out has got to go and experience it. And if I lived closer, Mara, as you know, we live on the North Shore of Chicago. Let's get one up here. But, I think about my career journey in, living in New York City, for example, then living in Chicago, and the number of what used to be just gyms. There weren't studios, very, very few of them back then, but there were all these different gyms. And I remember joining like New York Sports Club, and it was kind of like a middle of the road cost for what a gym is. And yeah, it had like lockers and showers and that kind of stuff, but no frills, right? Like you went there, you worked out or did a class and you're out of there. And then I joined Equinox and I was like, oh, this is my jam, because like there's a spa. And so I can like be in the same square footage and also do that. I can really enjoy my shower because I have really nice products, like that kind of stuff. And so the experience started to elevate. And clearly, with where the world's gone, what you've created is a very elevated experience where you can do everything underneath one roof. What do you find really brings people to Beyond who want to be a part of that and who are willing to pay that premium? We both know plenty of people will spend $10,000 on a handbag and then not take great care of themselves. And so I'm curious what you see with that.
There are many whys for people as to what brings them to Beyond. But, the cost of us, people are always shocked. They think we are in that tier of maybe $100,000 to join when we're 4,400. And I think as a little subset, when people add up actually what they're spending, and then the things that are not as linear, the time, the stress of the parking, the stress of going to and from, the expense of medical things, when you ignore the little, subtle cues that are just way too inconvenient to address. That is way more costly than what $4,400 a year quarterly actually gets you, paid quarterly, $4,400 a year. But I would say, again, there is a desire to live a more vital life in some capacity. And so I'll kind of walk you through a couple of different journeys for people. Some people use the club it's their landing point. It's kind of to what you know so well is rituals. They stay there. They're surrounded by a more peaceful environment, better options for them where nutrition and food come in. They want high quality, great options. And an environment that supports maybe thinking a little clearer before they go in for the rest of their day, whatever happens outside the walls of Beyond. And then there's people coming in and they're parking themselves there all day. It's their office, it's their gym, it's their spa, it's where their doctor is, it's where their friends are. It's, we all love, if you're a coffee or a tea drinker and you like to go out for it, that sense of community when you walk in and you see the same people, and it's just nice. And there's something really just comforting about that. And especially in today's society, having that sense of, I see you, hello, thank you so much.
Yeah. It's their cheers where everybody knows their name.
Yes. And they're recognized. And sometimes that is one of the things at Beyond where people are just craving that. Oh, hey, he brings me my coffee each day, or she supports the studio class that I love and hold on to so dearly. And I get to see her and she tends for the room, that sense of community. So people really throw themselves into completely. And then there's everything in between. People coming there straight for business because it's higher service, it's higher quality, they have more space, they have more customization options. It's not loud, it's got life, but it's not overbearing. Um, there's people who only go there for medical reasons. There's people who go there mainly for prevention, and there's people who go there to play. They have really lives for whatever reason you can come up with, and they get to come in there, and then they go with the Beyond team to pickleball on Wednesdays, or they go to the energetic healings on Thursdays, or they see one of our doctors for spiritual healing. So many reasons that people there. And one thing we didn't talk about a lot in the beginning, because it was so important to us that the quality came across and the integrity of what we were doing, how convenient all of that really is. And it still, I think to this day, is, until you walk through there, it feels like, yeah, how could everything be that good? But it is. And that's because our eye is on the ball of that point in every single facet of how we run this club day to day, and how we shape the programs, and how we run the actual facilities. All of that is so thoughtful. And then people really realize that. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can have world-class medical care down the hallway from my favorite yoga class and where my favorite breakfast burrito is. And those sorts of stories, when people piece it together, is really fun to see how they work it in, and how they, have that light bulb moment. But again, for some, it's just that space, and it might not be something they can articulate, but it does something.
Yeah. And what you're describing is that transformation. Like, you're actually seeing them start to transform the way that they're showing up for themselves and then in their lives, because it happens first internally. Yeah. And so you're noticing that, and then they start to show up differently, or, treat other people differently, or they start to feel better and look better. And then therefore they have more confidence, and you can see those things happen. And especially for you as an executive coach and someone who works with, leadership teams and people in general of that capacity, when you see someone who's like so tightly wound, and they're so urgent all the time, they don't think they can get out of their own way. Like, maybe they have a victimhood mindset, or maybe they just have a really big ego, and they just don't think that there's any space for them in their lives to really, really, truly care for themselves holistically. And you see them start to do that. Like, what are some of those big mindset shifts that you actually do notice in people when they have those breakthrough, those aha moments?
Yeah. There's one version where it's so big that they become very raw and fragile for a second, because they're questioning everything, and they're kind of cracked open. And I'm sure this, that those are some of the most meaningful experiences to go through. Now, I don't think they're the most common by any means, but when that happens, I just had this conversation yesterday. This is where our servers on the floor play an important role in someone's health journey, because someone that is in that state, and they're being served a coffee or a tea, and that person actually says something or recognizes them in a new way, that contributes. Or when one of the porter teams bring them a block, that contributes. But I think when those moments happen, that's where Beyond is so meaningful, because it is somewhat of a bubble for what I like to call, it's a training camp for everything that happens outside the walls of Beyond. We cannot control the second your foot steps out there, that someone honks at you, or something happens, or, something else terrible on the news, but we can train for how you now take this newfound wisdom in a multitude of ways to then be that much stronger on the other side, as you shape who that person is, that person is going to be. So that's where having everything in house is so meaningful, because there is not a linear way for somebody to walk that path and to piece it together. It also can be a lifelong journey. It also can be one tiny small shift that makes all the difference. But having mental health there, Ayurvedic techniques, the doctors, the executive coaching, the Eastern medicine programs, the studio classes of meditation and guided meditation and journeying, and the courses we do, that's what trains people for outside of the walls. And then there's just the little things where they're like, oh my gosh, I thought I hated needles. And that just changed everything. Someone said this once, fire just like puffed out of my ears, it felt like. And all of a sudden, I feel like I can hear my brain for the first time in 15 years. And I was like, that is remarkable. And those are cool moments where you have to feel it. And then maybe that becomes something. And it doesn't have much. And that particular person does acupuncture every other week. And that's his jam. And that's what for him. It kind of things together. So I think the mindset shifts sometimes are little peeks into opportunity through pain, or it's someone that they trust really has that transformation and they want to know what they're doing. I see that. And then there's some of the things where you're just in the environment, and what Kevin has said before when we were opening, he's like, at hotels where you have a big book and you're staying there and you're just flipping through what they have. And all of a sudden you see skydiving and you're like, yeah, I'll go skydiving. I'll try it. The rooms are great. It must be wonderful. It's kind of like that. People who maybe come there for one thing, like business, they might see someone walking out of an experience and they might know them and they talk. And then all of a sudden they're like, I will try yoga. I don't know. I never did. So the mindset shifts are all over the place, but what's great is that we're all there ready to catch people when they are ready to either fall or crumble or want to question something or want to try something. We make it very approachable and because of the integrity of our team and our programs. And I always try to get this point across. We've elevated all of these systems that are, some of them are unregulated. And to me, that was super important, being from that world, that I had a very high standard for how the care team was put into place. So when these people are walking in, and one of the examples would be one of our most advanced yoga classes, our team can handle when the person walks in there who didn't read the description or did, but still wanted to be there, they're in safe hands and they will have a positive experience. That was number one. So really, that's how we serve each unique person and each unique journey that happens.
I think that is so important. And it's an interesting topic to dive into for a second. When you know that someone is essentially out of their comfort zone. See, what I love about what you guys do at Beyond is that you do have this menu of options, right? So anyone can dabble into anything that interests them or piques their level of intrigue. And at the same time, a lot of those things might be beyond their comfort zone. And so you create this safe space where people are completely well taken care of, but also they're in the journey with everybody else around them. Like they're not, it's like you said, you're not going to walk into a yoga class that's, a level 2 or maybe it's a level 3 and be totally lost because someone is going to keep their eyes on you and help you out. Right. But how do you see that? I guess that's back to the community question. How do you see that community aspect of like when you're in a class with someone that doesn't know, or you are the person that doesn't know? How is that experience for everybody overall? And how do you hold that space? I imagine that's like, it's something that people are trained for, right? And something you and I understand. But what about people like leading teams and maybe there's something out of their comfort zone with a question someone asks, or you've got to get vulnerable around your team members and you're not comfortable doing that? Like, let's kind of take it to that level for a second.
Well, one thing we do at the club that really supports that from just a strategy standpoint is actually born out of my coaching career, which is called our advisory program. Every single member has the opportunity, and we very rarely have anyone pass us up on this, but they meet with what used to be me. Unfortunately, I've had to grow out of it. I missed it. But I have this wonderful woman who is now leading this team, and she meets with each person to almost just, why are you here? What are you interested in? What's going on in your life? It's obviously not formal coaching because coaching is an arrangement, but it is an opportunity to say, hey, this is a big space. You just got introduced to this app that has all of this stuff, all of these classes. Share with us what you do. What are you looking to do? What's going on in your life? And oftentimes when you hold that space, a lot happens and a lot comes out. And that is where we're able to support people right from the start to say, hey, this can be really supportive. Here's an avenue to go down, or when you're ready, here's this. Or there's people that say, I took this class, and this class. It has to be at this time, or that time. A, B, C, D, very prescriptive. And that's where the skill comes in of, oh, we obviously are very familiar with all of the studios and styles and things. Here are the exact types of experiences we think that you're looking for that you love already. And here is during that time that you just shared with me that works for you. Or here's another option. So we actually design that from the start with people, co-design it. But then I think from another club strategic standpoint, and then I'll go deeper into what you also asked, having the member roundtables. So we have our doctors and our team on staff hold these informal educational sessions. They're an hour long. They're complimentary to our members, and they are diving into topics or introducing them. Like, what is acupuncture? We have acupuncture for men coming up. Things that people are not ready to go spend the time or the money or even experience it yet. They can go ask the question to this source. So we do set it up from that standpoint. But the depth of holding space when you're uncomfortable, I think, is what Beyond supports, is that training ground for being uncomfortable. And even if you want to stay in that comfort zone, I think there's many ways to kind of test the limits with us. And in that supportive space, you can do that. And I think sometimes it rubs off on people and they see that opportunity, or they read about it, or they see an event that we're holding. And then when they do start taking the steps, it's like building a bicep, where all of a sudden something really challenging that happened in power class last week, where the instructor said, hey, I've seen you pick up those 20s for 3 weeks. Do you want to try a 25 or a 30? And they try it and they realize that I'm a little sore, but I'm so glad I did it. That might translate into something in leadership in their business, or with their children at home, or with their sibling who's going through a rough time. We're like, maybe I can try something different because I've trained for this in other ways and it seems to work out for me. And those are the sorts of connectivity points that we hope people take from doing these sorts of things.
I couldn't agree more. So you have had an evolution in your own journey within Beyond and Beyond. Beyond. You are a mother of young children. Obviously, you are a wife. You are this co-founder and this chief wellness officer. You do coaching. You do speaking. So tell me, how does Mar define success for herself?
I saw that question and I thought about it a lot, because success to me is when I'm operating at the level that I know I am capable of, B, am knowing that it's moving me towards the things that I have very good reasons for doing, and when I'm very clear on what it is that I'm doing. So I talk a lot about that in coaching, and when I speak, is, do you have good reasons why you're doing something, and do you like them? And those are really big questions that I think can take you through your whole life journey about, okay, this is why I'm doing it. Is it the ultimate reason, or is it moving me towards the ultimate reason? Sometimes it's not as linear, but if you really know why, and the whys are not shoulds, or because I think I like this, there has to be a really solid, clear reason. So to me, success is, and there's a feeling component to it, right? And I found that with my children. I have 3, and they're all were born throughout the Beyond process. I got pregnant 2 months into the project, so it's all I know is Beyond and babies, and my life with my husband, and everything in between. And it certainly was something where it was trial and error, but what really supported me was having a really good relationship with challenge and stress, where I knew that it was going to not be comfortable or fun the whole time. And I knew that I would figure that out. So with my kids, I had to figure out this is such a huge job. It took everything out of me, but my kids also, I want to give that to my kids first and foremost too. So how can I do both? And how do I make that
Mhm.
mix? And what is it going to look like? And it's that trial and error. And then over time, it shaped itself. And I knew my capacity limits for this is when I'm going to put that down. This is when I'm this up. Here's how I'm going to make this fit. Here's how I'm going to fit this in. And I only
Yeah.
fit in things that I knew
Yeah.
contributed to the whole. And that whole
Mhm.
had to be a picture that was healthy, that included
Right.
friends and included family and included my non-negotiables, which are my own health and my fitness and my mental
Yes.
solitude space. Um, and then obviously my kids, number one, is how am I shaping
Yes.
them through my active participation as a parent. So success to me is knowing that I am doing the things that I want to be doing, need to be doing for the reasons that I am very clear on. And that didn't always look that way. And I think it's
Mhm.
sometimes, again, it takes trial and error to figure that out.
I'm so glad you touched on that because I see this in a lot of my clients. I'm sure you see this in yours. People want to redefine success and they want to know what it is that truly fuels them and to be clear on what drains them and to make these decisions essentially on what they're going to allow their energy to move towards and what they're not. But too often people think it's work that they shouldn't fit in, that doesn't matter, that they don't have time for or don't want to do. When in reality, work is a big part of our lives and we need to not fight that and
Yeah.
embrace it. But if we're doing the wrong things for work, within reason, get a different job, right? Like you got to find something else to do or have a side project that is a passion project or pick up that guitar that you always used to love. Like do other things that are also bringing you energy and also grounding your energy at the same time. So with that, I know that you have read the book or maybe you're moving through it still. But let's talk about some of your rituals
Okay.
and what are those things that do truly ground you? I know, yes, fitness and meditation and those things, but are there other practices that are really your anchors and the things that you turn to, especially when you're exhausted or times are just a little bit more rushed than they typically
Yes.
are?
My one thing that has really changed shape with each child that came about was the mental solitude space. And it used to look like a firm, good 2 hour block at the height of my energy, which would be post workout. That didn't become possible. So, of course, in my way of going about my life is I just made sure that I figured out how to reshape that. So the workouts got smaller but mightier and they started being from home. And then I actually flipped it and started doing the work first and then moving into my workout and then moving into the day. But I prefer to have those spaces in the morning, first thing. And sometimes, for a while that was looking like 15, 20 minutes, but I made that work. So that's a huge ritual for me. I always find a way to have it, even if I am choosing to sleep in a little bit, which to me means the 6:15. And when that happens, I take those 15 minutes or I use rituals in terms of compounding. So when I meditate, it's when I'm walking to and from something or when I am closing the garage door in my car, and I take some deep breaths and I transition very thoughtfully from when I walk from the car into my home. So I use walking to and from as my way to meditate. And then also the compounding of if I am doing something for the kids, but I need to also be prepping for something, I use the things I don't have to do a lot of thought with, like making some lunch, that's pretty easy for me to do. I will go through kind of my mental to-do list, my checklist, prep for the day while also getting the things done that have to get done. Um, and then I snippet a lot of things. So ritual for me is just really chopping a lot of things up into really small little bits and being very, very present with what I am dedicating that time to be and going all in on it. And So for me, those are heavy rituals. And my new favorite ritual, which I've always wanted to be this person, which was this skincare ritual. I've really embraced that lately. And so I've been doing this skincare ritual. I got one of those red light face masks from the HSA FSA store over the holidays. And that's been really nice because it's a nice, I think it's a tangible thing and I look forward to it. And that has become very therapeutic for me.
Oh, I love that. It's so funny. I'm one of those, like, let me put that on and sit on my vibration plate so I can like do both at the same time.
I got one of those.
And I like have my gua sha on my neck at the same time,
Everything. And then maybe typing an email, Yeah.
Right? Oh, we have to do all the things,
Yeah.
don't we?
Yeah.
Well, I love those rituals. I can tell they're very meaningful for you, but also they move the needle, which is why you do them, right? And that is what I want people to understand more and more about choosing themselves and choosing to ritualize certain things in their life that are going to do something for them. They're going to bring value or they're going to ground them or give them energy. That is so crucial. And I think that you explained that in a very, very good way. As we wrap up, Mar, I'm curious what you want to leave people with as far as what you hope they understand about time, energy, or intention, because your perspectives are very unique on
Yeah.
this.
I think the answer for me is pretty straightforward in that all of that is their choice. And until you really embrace that and that you have choice in all of those things, as soon as you say, I don't have enough time, it actually means I'm not choosing to create it, or I'm not choosing to fill it with that, or I'm choosing something else instead. Or it's, with my energy, it's because of this, that, or whatever. You always have choice in how you are going to work with that. It does not mean positivity that's toxic, that we slap lipstick on something that's painful, but it's about recognizing it and being honest with it. And then how do you work about your life and the things that you care about and the character that you want to be as you move through life with whatever that painful thing or hard moment or situation or time in your life is. Um, it is choice. And we have that ability. And that's the unique part of being a human being is that you do have that power and that capability. And so when people can ask themselves, is this thought or is this action moving me towards or away from what I actually want? Like actually want. Sometimes people get stuck at that. I don't even know what I want. Or they're like, yeah, this totally is not helping. So then why are we doing that? Start questioning things. I've always talked about the fact of question everything a little bit and see where it leads you and see if you like that answer. And sometimes that will take you some time to work through, but it's a choice. And that's what.
Yes. Yes, it's a choice. You absolutely are so right. You have agency over your life. So, Mar, tell people where they can find you. You're obviously an excellent executive coach on the side of all the things you do with Beyond, and you do speaking engagements. So, let them know where is best to find you.
Sure. So Beyond is our website. You can find me there. You can find me on, so it's www.livebeyond.com. Beyond.com was taken, but we are called Beyond. And I'm on Instagram, mar.soraparu. I also run the account for Live Beyond. So at Live Beyond is me as well. So please, if you have questions about Beyond and you live in Chicago, we have a lot of things that are also accessible to non-members, such as private events and some of our medical side from the medical concierge. And yes, I do speaking engagements all over the world, whether it be virtual or in person. It's one of the things I will always maintain, and same with the coaching. It goes through the club, but I am able to take clients from anywhere. So please feel free to reach out. I'll put my email out there. It's mar@livebeyond.com. So you can find me there.
Awesome. And we will include all of this information in the show notes of where to find Mar. Mar, thank you. This was, of course, a very authentic and uplifting conversation. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Erin. Likewise.
Yep. And everyone, you know what to do. Please like, rate, and share this show with those who need to hear it. And until next time, be well.
Thank you.